Mhm.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Mackenzie.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm just trying to wrangle some people here on chat or on text because sometimes that just works better for people to get a little nudge that way. So,
Isn't that the truth?
yeah. You remind them a day before the meeting, you
I
remind
know.
them a few minutes
And
before
then
the
you're like 4 minutes before the
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
just
That's the right
progressing.
time. Exactly.
I know. It's amazing when you start to. Baja and I were joking about that yesterday for a call. I was like, should I text 15 minutes before to remind them?
Yeah. The answer is usually yes.
The answer apparently is always yes.
And they go, I didn't know that was meeting was happening.
Right? I know. Baja, we were just joking about all of wrangling community partners.
Yeah. Hey, Baja.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well. Nice to meet you. And you want to talk about wrangling with Matthew Salinger on the call. He's uh, chief wrangler of the Sonoran Collaborative, which we're part of. And so he's a master at it.
I don't know if I'm a master at anything, but
Maybe you're a master at denying when people say something positive about you. You
There
are
you
good at
go.
that. You are good at that.
I was trained well.
Hmm.
Who else is coming to this meeting?
Well, we'll see. Looks like we're still waiting for a couple folks to come on. I don't know if you can see in the calendar invite everyone that we have here. We'll do some intros and what's up, Kyle? Hey, Victoria. And some gratitudes to get started. So I figure, since we're going to be going around the circle here to start, that we can start off doing some intros and share something that we're grateful for. I was also thinking that when we have maybe one more person come in here, that we can get started and then also share something that we're excited about related to resilience hubs. Like, why are we into it? Because I think everyone's into it. I don't know about Victoria though, because I just shared this idea with you recently. So, did you get a chance to look at any of the stuff I sent? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that along. I feel a little prepared coming into
All
this.
right. Nice. I passed along Baja one of your podcast interviews that did a good job. It was like a just under 30-minute interview that you did talking about the resilience hubs, which I thought painted a real nice picture. So thanks for that.
For sure. Thanks for using a resource. That's always exciting to know that somebody uses those things.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Every once in a while.
Who knew?
Cool. Well, let's just get going and get into it. We'll have more people show up in a little bit, I'm guessing. And I'll keep my eye on my phone here in case someone has trouble getting into the meeting. So, I guess just to start, um, my name is Chris Casillas. I'm the founder of Regenerating Sonora. We're a nonprofit based in Superior, Arizona, population 3,000, about an hour east of Phoenix. And I am grateful for good coffee. I'm grateful for the fall, and I'm grateful for my family. And I'm excited about Resilience Hubs because, for many reasons, but the one I'll share now is it does a good job of breaking the Overton window to talk about some of the challenges that we face that we're not always comfortable to talk about directly. So with that, I will pass it over to Matthew.
Hmm. All right. Yeah, I'm really grateful for the holiday season and getting some time off, and using it as a moment of reflection, of really great reflection over the last year and many years. And I'm excited about resiliency hubs because it is, living in Tempe, Arizona, really anywhere in the Phoenix metro area, you really see a need for it, especially when the weather gets really hot. So I think, also that post-pandemic, we really need to bring our communities together in as many ways as possible, and resiliency hubs have an opportunity to do that too. I'll pass it over to Kyle.
Hello, I'm Kyle. I'm also with the Southwest Regenerative Cohort. Matt and I are also reaching out to do some Resilience Hub stuff in Tempe. I'm most grateful for, I was gone for 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm really grateful to be back home and have a family to come home to, and just really excited to be back. And I'm most excited for Resilience Hubs and what it can do at a social level with cities and communities within that city, and how they can actually network with each other, and just the potential that can have on communities at large. I'll pass it to Victoria.
I'm Victoria with Local First Arizona, largely focusing on local economies, community and economic development across the state of Arizona. I am grateful for same thing like the holiday time off, getting to see all of my family. It'll be very lovely to see my nana, see all my cousins. And I'm excited about Resilience Hubs because they're community-centered approaches and they're proactive. I think a lot of times folks have to be reactive to what's happening. And so it's nice to really start thinking about what can communities be doing together to think ahead. And I'll pass it on over to Mackenzie.
Hey everybody, I'm Mackenzie Jones. I'm the Resilience Hub Director for USDN. I've been in this role since August, and I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona. So I'm super grateful to see all of these wonderful Arizonans working on Resilience Hubs. It just fills my heart with warmth. And I've lived in Flagstaff, gosh, over 15 years now, worked for the city of Flagstaff and their sustainability program, and then started the city of Sedona's program, and then was with the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals working in their tribes and climate change program nationally. So I've worked with Baja for a long time in other settings, and just been excited to work on supporting Resilience Hubs across the country the last few months. I'm looking forward to hearing more about what you're all working on. And last thing that I'm excited about is I love Local First Arizona. So just everything you all do is fantastic. So it's exciting to be on the call. And I will hand it over to Baja.
Hey y'all, I'm Baja. I use she, he pronouns. I'm joining you all from the land of the Anishinaabe, up in what is present day known as Michigan. But I do have my own Arizona ties. I actually went to ASU, both for an online graduate school program in biomimicry, and then also as my undergrad way back in the day. So I've spent a lot of time in Tempe and Phoenix. I'm super grateful for all of my houseplants. They bring me so much joy every day, and they're so colorful and beautiful. And right now, 2 of them are giving me their love. So it's always lovely to have them around. And I originated the concept of Resilience Hubs a decade ago. And so what I'm really loving about it is that people are excited about them now, 10 years later, and working to implement them. And it brings me joy that it's made it past the 10-year mark, and is something that we're now seeing to really get picked up across scales. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Ott, and I work with Vitalist Health Foundation and our fiscal sponsorship program, TAP AZ, specifically around partner engagement. So I really am grateful for Chris and the Regenerating Sonora team. I work with them on a variety of projects. So grateful for the invitation to hop in this call. I'm also grateful I have family coming into town. I'm a transplant to Arizona, so I'm excited to be with family around the holidays coming up, which will be really nice. And I don't know a lot about Resiliency Hub, so I'm excited to just hear more and listen in and learn from all of you. And I'm not sure how late I
Yeah.
joined, who hasn't gone yet.
Johanna.
You're on mute.
I was gonna say, talking louder doesn't work when you're still muted. Let me see, ask to unmute. There we
Sorry.
go.
Hi. Hi, you guys. So yeah, I'm Joanna, 23, and I'm really grateful to be here, invited to this meeting. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a big truck pulling up. I'm gonna close the door. But yeah, I'm grateful because I'm excited about the idea of becoming a resilience hub here in the Copper Corridor. I own buildings and have space to store food and water, and we have a community that's active. And it just, when I was reading about it, it felt like it just resonated as a good program. And I like how it transfers power to the community, and it's just really cool. So thank you for inviting me.
All
Okay,
right.
I'm done.
Cool. Thanks, Joanna. So, yeah, we can do some context setting and then based on that, see where the conversation might go. It'd be great to get you the experience of you, Baja and Mckenzie on where we could go with next steps based on what you hear us share today. So, I'll start off by saying that Kyle was the first person to talk about resilience hubs to me, and the great thing about it is it has such a good name and it says so much. I was just listening to some stuff by an old 1900s philosopher, and he was talking about the study of a clear idea. And it's like a clear idea, you should like almost just see it in your mind almost immediately upon hearing it. And that's like what the name Resilience Hub does to begin with. And then there's everything behind it as well. So Kyle first shared that within the context of us all being part of the Sonoran Collaborative. So a number of us here in the Phoenix metro and beyond area, we've all taken the Regenerative Practitioner series through the Regenesis Institute, and it's through that we've come together to see how we can all support each other in this work. So through that, we're having that conversation. So after hearing about Resilience Hubs, I went online and did a bunch of research and was blown away by the concept, especially because it seems to thread the needle really well of not imposing a thing upon places, but inviting them into a framework and some things that can have an identity without like being like colonial in a do-gooder paradigm. Because when we talk about let's spread this everywhere, it's like it's just wrought with problems when it can be recapitulating some bad patterns. And when I looked into this in detail, I really didn't see that happening at all. In fact, it seems like it was working with the local potential that's there and then helping to strengthen and bolster it. So that gave me enough encouragement to continue to look into it more, to share that with Joanna out in Miami, and then Daniel in Kearney. Those are some neighboring towns of ours here, and shared the information with them. And it's just like, seems like we're all on the same page of just being excited and wanting to start to seed a regional network of resilience hubs, because obviously we know the strength of of the network effects that can occur when we start to work together, especially around something like resilience. So part of why it was a natural fit to talk with Joanna and Daniel is not only are they neighbors, but we're already ongoingly engaged in a regional collaborative. In fact, at the top of the hour, this call is just going to shift into the regional collaborative call that we're doing. And it'll be like the 15th time that we've met together. And we're just, working on building our strategy for how we can work together in both the tops down and bottoms up approach. The bottoms up approach is like, we all represent organizations. How can we work together? The tops down approach is we're all caring humans who live in the Copper Corridor. How can we work together in a strategic way to shift the system for the Copper Corridor to be a thriving place? So that's a little bit about where we're at. I would say that we've got in touch with American microgrid systems and solutions, excuse me.
Solutions, yeah.
Yeah, and yep, and so I've gotten a quote for our site here, and we're working on getting calls set up with Joanna and Dave and Daniel to get their sites quoted. But what we'd like to do is try to shop this around to get a technical assistance grant to pay for their efforts, because we don't have the budget right now to do that on our own as is. But when we talked with someone from Local First who does like they passed the quote on to some folks who do other kinds of feasibility studies and technical assistance support, and they said, you're not going to find a better deal anywhere. You should definitely go with those guys. So I was really encouraged to hear that and to feel confident that partnering with this group makes sense, not just financially, but also because of the deep embeddedness that the organization has with the founding of the concepts to begin with. Sounds like that team was really involved. So I think that's as far as we can tell what our next steps is going to be, is at least get that started, because in the meantime, like in our community center that we have in Superior, we're already doing things like self-sufficiency workshops. We're going to start doing some emergency preparedness workshops, just working with people in town who care about this and are experts in it in their own right, to start to share this with people in town. So that's all happening. Our community center has been around for 4 years. I find it interesting that we talked about we're a community center, and then COVID hit and it like totally changed everything, and we turned into like an emergency response place to deliver meals for, it ended up being 10,000 meals over the course of 2 years. And then we said, oh, and then we went back to being a normal community center. And what's funny is we talk about that story as like it being this weird monkey wrench, but now when we think about the Resilience Hub as like a story of evolution, you can actually see that it was almost like a precursor of like what is to come later on. So I feel more coherence in the story. And Joanna shares about flooding that happened and how that at your place, Joanna, it was like people came there naturally, got together to figure out how to distribute resources and how to work together. So we have and when you talk with Daniel from Set Free Kearney, you hear that like they are a critical community resource and it's their church. But it's a place where people are going all the time for support. So we have that local potential going. So I think there's a lot there. And I'll wrap with this as far as our context setting is concerned, which is that Victoria is working on finding out what kind of community facilities are going to be needed in the Winkleman-Hayden area, which is all part of the Copper Corridor, just further away from us. And there could just be some possibilities of a resilience hub there, depending on what she's finding in her own stakeholder engagement. She was just there yesterday. So, okay, I said a lot. I'd like to hear any responses. Joanna, if you want to add on to anything that I said there before we hear from Baja and Mckenzie. Or if you're good.
As far as
Any context setting stuff.
Yeah, well, we've had our building, Miami Artworks here since 2007, and it's a 100-year-old building, and there's 10 rooms upstairs, and we've been like, at first it was just full of pigeon stuff, and so over the years, we've slowly cleaned it up and made it livable and added plumbing and electricity and kitchens and bathrooms, and have an art gallery downstairs, and artists live and work here. So I guess there's that we've just like we already have a community, and then we have been facing more and more extreme like climate events, like the fires, which we really sat there and thought we might lose the whole town, you know. But then after that, the floods came through, and there's a lot of worry about the soil, and if we have to remediate the soil after the floods washed all the you know, burn scars through the wash right behind us. And I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff that seems like relevant to this project that are concerns that we might be able to get help with. There's more to it, but I don't want to take the whole time.
Yeah, Baja Mckenzie, let's hear from you. Just given that we've all spent time reading the resources and hearing the stuff about what it's all about, so you don't necessarily have to give the basic intro as far as what they are, because we're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Great. I love it when people have had Kool-Aid already. I think the biggest thing that we start with then in this sort of situation is everybody on the call aware of the 5 foundational areas and the 3 modes? Okay. Mackenzie's putting some resources into the chat that you should look at later, not while we're on this call. There's a guide to developing resilience hubs. There's certainly our Resilience Hub website. There's also going to be a video film series that talks about what is a resilience hub and gives examples of certain urban ones. We're working on a couple of the rural films right now. But the 5 foundational areas are key for any time you're going to be developing or working on a resilience hub. And the reason being is that people tend to have a desire to work on solar and storage and put that on a building and call it a resilience hub. And if it's not centered in community, it's not grounded in community, it's not doing the services and programs, and all the other components aren't thought about, it ends up not being a site that's very useful. And we've seen this over time. We've especially experienced it in areas like Puerto Rico and Texas and others where we've seen Department of Energy come in. We call them disaster vultures sometimes, that like to come in, say they're doing something amazing, but then aren't actually communicating with community. And so they're just doing something for their own optics rather than doing it rooted in the folks who live there. So the 5 foundational areas are services and programs as number 1, communications as number 2, buildings and landscape as number 3, power systems as 4, and then operation and maintenance as number 5. And we tend to use those as our overarching, what we call scaffolding, because we've been able to create and have a lot of resilience hubs in design, development, planning, or actual implementation within those 5 categories, and almost everything fits into them. We also then will use those in sort of a cross matrix with what we call the modes of resilience. We never look at resilience as a placeholder for emergency management or talk about resilience centered around hazards. We actually talk about resilience holistically year-round and centered around humans. And in that, when we're talking about what a resilient community is, it needs to be resilient every day, what you can call everyday mode, blue skies, whatever you'd like to call it. But essentially, there isn't a terrible sort of event present, and there's still a need for resilience building at that time. And then there's a disruption mode, and then there's a recovery mode. And we're really intentional about disruption, because if you say it's a climate event, or if you center a natural disaster, you're missing out on some of the other really big things, such as COVID, as we just went through. But we've also had these sites used in active shooter situations. We've had them used in lots of different ways. It's any type of disruption that the community needs to come together in a space to feel safe and have access to resources and communication and materials. The thing that's usually different about rural sites versus urban sites is sometimes rural sites are also then retrofitted to have the ability to shelter in place or to shelter for longer periods of time. That's not always the case. And it's kind of the community and the folks who are running the site need to decide if that's something that the site will or will not have. But just dependent on if people are traveling longer distances to come to a location, they tend to have some sort of setup, whether temporary or long-term. The additional components that I'll just mention is services and programs. Sounds like, okay, we're going to provide preparedness meetings. We're going to do things related to community emergency response team training. I want to ask you to expand your mind into what would be the most idealized, incredible version of a community hub for you and the people that are around you in your sort of orbit. In that, we start to get people then thinking about, wow, I'd really love a maker space that I could go and work on little things that I don't have to have at home. I'd really love to have a place to store tools where then I can come and check it out, use it at home, and then bring it back. I'd really love to have a place for pre-K childcare, commercial kitchen, whatever the case may be. We get into that kind of discovery with folks related to resilience hubs because, again, we're looking at these as spaces for community cohesion, social connectivity, the idea of social resilience taking all kind of being prioritized over all the other components that we see around resilience, and then noting that those other components go in to support it. Certainly, American Microgrid Solutions has been a great partner for us in the power system space, but we have other partners in some of these other areas as well. We work with Urban Land Institute in the sort of building and landscape space. We work with different partners who help us in each one of those areas because it's not going to just be about power, as we've seen with some of these recent disruptions. The thing I will warn you about is I can talk about resilience hubs for about 5 hours without breathing because they've been my life for so long. So this is the point at which I stop talking and see if there's something specific you all do want to ask us, or Mackenzie, if there's anything you want to add in right now.
Just a quick response. It's nice to hear that because it's a much bigger picture than the, what do you call it, the kits and plans and the off-grid power. So the good thing about our situation here is like we're doing these things and are actively pursuing these because we're active community centers already, right? So like we have programming, we have youth programs, and you talk about some of the makerspace stuff that Joanne is doing. I get really excited. So it's nice that we have those pieces, but the pieces that we definitely have gaps in is like if it like just looking at American Microgrid Solutions, if it's going to take a year to go from now to now we're implementing the project. It's like that's why there's an emphasis there for us because we have some of those other baseline aspects going and consistently evolving. But it would be interesting to note like who your other partners are that can help with the other 5 aspects of the scaffolding. I think that would be worthwhile to know. And then yeah, I think that's probably the one question that I'd have. And then it'd be nice to hear from Mackenzie too.
The thing I'll say about our partners is they're different by different area. So we don't just shop around the same partners to everyone. We have ones that are specific to Los Angeles. We have ones that are specific to Hawaii, ones that are specific to Detroit. So we have different partners and different sort of regional collaborators in each area. We have certainly been doing some work in Tempe for a while, in Flagstaff. Mackenzie used to run City of Sedona Sustainability. So we have lots of different folks that we work with, including in Tucson, noting that not all of them have the same rural connectivity. A lot of them are urban because we are the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, but it would be something that we could check in with them, see if they're interested in this kind of project, and then send you a short list. Mackenzie, if you want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, I would just say that in this context, because I work in Arizona, I mean, we do have these relationships all across the country, but here in particular, because I worked in local food for 15 years across Arizona, I feel like I've got a lot of relationships around the state, and I feel like there's a lot of potential partners that could support your work, depending on the directions you're interested in taking it, right? But the sky is the limit.
Nice. I mean, it'd be really interesting to know if there's folks who do any kind of design, like site design stuff around like, here's where you could store food. Here's where you could have these systems that you'd want to have within your building. I think that at least within the context of our community center, that would be helpful because we're like in a time to redesign phase ourselves, so it would fit in well. And then also funding partners would be really helpful because this stuff, it's like someone here in town, an elder that says, "Sin dinero no baile el chango." Without money, the monkey don't dance, and there's unfortunately a lot of truth to that. So finding the like for instance with Flagstaff, the $1 million that was to fund those 3 hubs, it was really interesting to see that it was a federal grant that was able to bring that in. So I think maybe a separate conversation around funding sources would be really helpful to know, like what our options could be, and is there a possibility of partnering with other organizations who are trying to do these resilience hubs as well, so we could maybe go after options that we wouldn't be eligible for on our own. We have 3 communities now who are working together, and that might be enough, or we could have more. But I think it would just depend on what's available.
Yeah, and there are a lot of federal funding opportunities. I think that what we've seen is that oftentimes getting that initial work done through local foundations is a good starting point. And then Flagstaff had already done some of that groundwork already before applying for the EPA, EJ funding. But we have a few different funding profiles that kind of show how different hubs are piecing it together. And it normally is some combination of a local foundation, maybe some corporate support, some federal funding, all sorts of things that it's always going to be a puzzle for sure. We do also have the document that it's a fun short document that kind of has visual design elements, and I can put that in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'm saving the chat and I'll send an email out to everyone that's on this meeting so that we can all look at it later. Yeah, thanks for that. Might be good for Matthew. Yeah. Oh, hey, look, perfect timing. I was going to say, Matthew and Kyle, you might want to talk about what you're doing with the city of Tempe right now.
Yeah, I wanted to first just start off by asking Mckenzie and Baja if you guys have been working with the city of Tempe. Baja, sorry, did I get that wrong? Apologize.
You got it the second time. Good job.
I'm
Yes,
so close to Baja, California. I can't.
Yeah, I get it all the time in the Southwest. We have been working with the city of Tempe for a while, actually, from when Braden first started there till when he left and it transitioned over. And we have some good lessons learned from, we like to say, advice given, not taken, and then them coming back and saying, "Oh, shucks, we wish we had listened," which is great because like we want all those lessons learned. And when we've done a few in-person meetings pre-2020, and then most of the rest of the stuff has been virtual. Mckenzie's been really following up with them recently in the work they're doing right now.
Okay, so you've been working with Carissa at all?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been working with Carissa and Brianne.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, it's
great.
such a great group.
Yeah,
And I know that I think to Baja's point, they are definitely a challenge that local governments have is that when you have a facility or you have, something that already works, you try to figure out like, well, how can we make this thing we have work, right? Which is not a bad thing, but definitely leading with community and the community desire for a space is the right way to go. And I think retrofitting that in after the fact can be difficult, which is something Tempe has discovered.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, Kyle and I just started getting involved with them. We had our first real meeting on Monday. And with Eric Iverson and Brianna and Carissa. And what we just approached them from the standpoint of trying to give them some community assistance because I live in Tempe and I'm really actively involved in the community here. They know that I have a record of being able to communicate with community members, and generally what I've been doing with the advocacy I've been doing is working with developers, working with the city, and working with communities. And what they have seen that I have a skill for is actually being able to translate what developers, architects, and city people are saying to people that are not in that realm normally in the community. And so that was one of the kind of skill sets that we were offering, but also the larger context of the Sonoran Collaborative that Chris and Kyle and I and 3 other people are involved in, all TRP grads, working to try to create better communication and better sort of facilitation of these kinds of conversations in neighborhoods, and also to see what the resiliency hubs really can be. And that I'll leave it over to Kyle, who is actually more up on specifically resiliency hubs than I am. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say because we are just kind of starting the conversation with Tempe, and you know, I brought it in because Tempe had a ideas competition, and I was part of that competition, or on a team that was part of that competition. So we got really familiar with what they're about, and that's why I brought it up to the regenerative cohort, because it just felt regenerative in its essence. So really excited that we have that Tempe just had this ideas competition, but that it was actually something that they're really looking into to make happen in the city. I'm also very happy that they're welcoming us into the conversation, even at some level. So.
Yeah, and to add on to that, one of the interesting things that you guys said about the difference between the rural hubs and the urban hubs, in Tempe, they're trying to make it such that nobody would have to walk more than a half mile to each of the hubs. And that is a really interesting aspect about the rural hubs and how they would have to function differently. At the same time, I wonder what the assessment that you guys are going through in the Copper Corridor. I mean, it's so much different than what we've got in Tempe. It's a small land area, but it's very dense. Not very dense, but it's dense. And they're picking and choosing where they can go based on availability and location, basically. Are you guys going through the same thing in the Copper Corridor, or is it more about who has come forward?
Yeah, it's different. It's different for us because it's more grassroots in the sense that we're the community organizers. We already have the facilities versus we want to find places to put resilience hubs from like a government standpoint. So yeah, our municipalities they're super low funded and have, they're way overworked. So for them to spend time thinking about these things and putting them into action, I can't really expect, those folks to do that. But, we're this just fits right in line with what we're trying to make happen in our community. So it's, I think, a different context that way,
So you're looking for technical assistance on that, but is it going to pay people that are within the Copper Corridor, or are you going to bring in outside?
I doubt it. Like, for instance, like American Microgrid Solutions, like they're based in the East Coast, right? So it's like but it's like how many people have the level of expertise and this kind of a niche sort of understanding. So I know that when they talk about the implementation, they gesture towards trying to hire locals for some of the work, but I think we'll just have to see where that's actually going to go. Joanna, you just unmuted, I think. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. I feel like something that would help the resilience of our community is also activating the makerspace for several reasons. The people here a lot of people really want to do screen printing, and we have all the equipment, but the building just needs some work, and then they would be employed with that. And I think it would be beyond just like a hobby, that it would be meaningful work for several people here already. And let's see. So training, we could offer training, and also we have a lot of tools, and I'm really interested in lending them like a tool library. What else was I gonna say? yeah, I don't know. So yeah, it is different from Tempe. Like we have a lot of the stuff already. It's just sort of the buildings need support. Like having solar power on this building would save us around up to $2,000 a month, which is our biggest bill by far. And I just can't, I can only like imagine what else we could do with all that money, you know, to like put in whatever it is we need. Like there's a lot, but we're all doing our best. What was that, love? We have a whole wood shop too. Like if we get the maker space up and going, we can build windows, like the old windows that all these old buildings have that none of the modern window makers really seem to offer. So I don't know, we're interested in sort of learning how to do upgrades in a historically like so they at least look right, you know. But that's all I wanted to say about that.
Nice.
Oh,
Was
sorry.
talking with, oh, go ahead, Mackenzie.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm sure you all are familiar with the various resources that, and I don't know if you all have, do you have APS or SRP?
We have APS in Superior.
Okay. So they have that solar communities program that puts solar on different non-residential buildings. And it's a good starting point for getting solar because it doesn't cost anything for you. And it adds solar to the grid. I mean, it's a, you know, it's complicated. It's APS always, right? So,
Yeah.
but it's worth looking into. It's a good starting point, I think, for some folks. If you don't have like the resources to get solar, it can be a nice way to add solar to your community with and get people comfortable with it.
I've heard people talk like I think it was a HUD presentation where they were framing the resilience hubs as climate health resilience hubs. As far as like how people are talking about them and naming and framing, what have you seen that that works and doesn't work? Because I've seen a lot of headlines like where they call them climate resilience hubs, and you know it's so just what are your thoughts on just how it's named and framed?
I'm sure Baja could write a dissertation on that. I think it really depends on, you know, we were just joking. We saw one that was green resilience hubs, I think, a week or so ago. You know, working in Arizona, you have to frame it the way that you do to get the funding and the work done. But I think what we do see is that a lot of times the framing is around the hazards rather than the humans. And so I think, however, when you're thinking about how you sell it to people, funders and things like that, you open up a lot more funding opportunities and just possibilities in general when you are focusing on the people and the people in your community and what they need in their community. And so that is especially, you know, makes it, you're able to find better partnerships like Arizona Community Foundation or any number of other sort of more local or regional foundations that are focused on human services and rather than environmental or emergency management pieces.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Can I jump in just to follow up on that, Mackenzie? Do you guys have, just out of curiosity, partially, although Tempe was talking about the name of the hubs themselves too to Kyle and I on Monday, so it's been on our mind. Have you come across some really interesting creative names that you remember?
We're not trying to encourage a lot of different names. And there's a reason for that, because we're trying to encourage federal government partners who we also have been talking to for over 6 or 7 years to actually get on board to have resilience hubs become critical facilities that then get critical facility funding. If we create 17, 30, 70 different names for resilience hubs, it dilutes the entire purpose. The element that you get into related to the health resilience hubs is actually integrating health into the resilience hub concept. That was a paper that was written with HHS where they're coming around, they're seeing it, they're saying, yes, resilience hubs are a great place for us to put in health. But we see people say community resilience hubs, health resilience hubs, green resilience hubs. The point being is, if we get rid of like resilience hubs and turn them into a bunch of other creative names, I think we're going to lose the intent behind them. So we really discourage coming up with a lot of different names, but we do also really say it needs to be owned and managed by the community. So if you're seeking funding around them, if you're looking for resources, if you're looking for partners, that's the time to use the resilience hub language. The community usually comes around to saying, yeah, we want to use resilience hubs in the actual name of whatever site it is, but that's not true all the way around. In certain sites, especially when we're in Hawaii or Puerto Rico or other areas, they change the name to reflect specifically the community. And so but they consistently use resilience hubs as the framing that we do for all funding and design.
So when you talk about the health, though, does that like when HUD was saying, yeah, these are climate health resilience hubs, were you saying that that's taking away from what you're trying to do around keeping the same name identified across the federal government, or what?
Yeah, we're running into issues with federal government partners right now where everybody's using the word resilience hub for a different thing to just be aligned with their agency. So Department of Energy is saying resilience hubs, but what they're doing is putting solar and storage on buildings and doing nothing else. We're having a HUD do the same thing, saying resilience hubs should be in these multifamily housing units, but then they're not adhering to the 5 foundational areas. We're having FEMA say these are going to be resilience hubs, which means we're just going to be using a new code name for disaster preparedness shelters. So what we're really, the reason Mckenzie says I can write a dissertation on this is because it like is the thing at this point that if I had 10 cents for every time I've said exactly what I'm going to say to you right now, I would be funding resilience hubs as a multi-billionaire. So like the point being though is like, if we dilute a concept that's already pushing people to get beyond the norms related to resilience, and we give it so many different names or so many different platforms or so many different designs, we do what happened to the green infrastructure sort of space, where it just becomes too many toolkits and people are just saying, well, then we'll just put in a park, rather than actually deeply connecting with nature and thinking about those components and the reality of what we hope for. So probably that was a bad analogy, but
I get what you're saying though, yeah.
We stick around it so that the community fills in the content around the scaffolding, and the 5 foundational areas still remain true, so that we can say to Department of Energy, yeah, you're doing the resilient energy portion. HUD, you're doing the resilient building portion. EPA, you're doing the resilient landscape portion. We're getting these other partners to do the resilient communications portion, but they're coming together around something that's going to serve community all the time. And the community is going to have the ownership and management over it. It's not a top down.
Yeah, heard. And Kelsey, I saw that you got to get going. You want to say anything before you sign off, or do you got a boogie?
I do have to get going, but I was just going to say thank you guys, because this has been super informative. And Chris, I just want to follow up with you because I have some ideas from like our foundation's perspective for potential partnerships and funding opportunities. So follow up.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you being here, Kelsey.
Yeah, have a good one.
See ya. On the whole, like, I'm interested in where there's like parity between like federal level models and thoughts and like local realities. When those things are matching up, I get a little bit of hope. So Baja and Mckenzie, are y'all familiar with the vital conditions for health framework? Is that something that, yeah, okay. So this is something we've been looking at closely, because when we saw it and saw that there's like, 45 government agencies that are all saying that they're going to use this framework, it was nice to see, because we can map a lot of our programming right onto this framework, and it just fits without having to force it, similar to like the resilience hub, where it's like we see these fits without a forcing function to do so. So I guess the question would be, since you are familiar with them, what relationship do you see between the vital conditions and the resilience hubs, either implicitly or explicitly?
I mean, it's easy to map every single component into the 5 foundational areas. So just as you have for the conditions, it's where we make the alignment coming into the 5 foundational areas, and then also utilizing them for the way that we're doing essentially metrics of usability. I think there's certain things that are maybe missing in health and well-being. Belonging to us is a metrics that's not often brought in, but it's a huge one. Feeling like you're going to be checked in on. I think belonging and civic muscle is there, but it's not really built out as far as what are the questions, the way that they're talking to people, the way that they're actually getting that sense of belonging. So we weave, but we don't use that as the platform because most of our members are actually working on things like the SDGs. That's a way that it translates across scales, especially for folks working in urban spaces. And then we also have mapped the resilience hubs to things like the principles, life's principles and biomimicry. We've mapped them to different sort of things. So we look at the intersectional spaces and then map them to the 5 foundational areas to show where everything aligns and shows up.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess I was gonna whine about the SDGs, but I'm gonna not do that now.
I would love to whine
Yeah.
about the SDGs, and I can whine about COP all day long and all the other
Yeah.
things. But what that allows us to do is say to our partners in Japan, our partners in New Zealand, our partners in other places, that's the most universal language to actually bring others along right now, which is the reason we did that mapping. The way to bring in our landscape architecture community and our nature-based community is to map to the life's principles and biomimicry. So we've been doing that. The way to map to our health department has actually been working with HHS based on their principles and mapping that. And then with J40 and looking at equity components, we certainly talk about shifting of power, but it also comes into the metrics and the elements related to where are these being prioritized, how are they being prioritized, and where are they most needed. And that those are certain things where we've had that kind of advice given, not always listened to. And so that's where we run into just lessons learned.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I wanted to ask too, Baja, like what's your main focus now? Like what are you into at the moment? Because I have a feeling that your purview is more than just resilience hub. So what's up for you?
Yeah, I won't tell you my whole work plan because I think that would be boring for everyone. But I think Mckenzie and I, as far as Resilience Hub go, what we are working and focusing on is implementation, making sure they're getting done and making sure that people don't think that you have to have the perfect plan, everything in place or everything already done in order to start. The idea with the Resilience Hub, and we just had this said by one of our community partners, is you are flying the plane and building components of it while you're flying. The intention is not to get to the perfect plan, the perfect resources and all the other things ahead of time. You're identifying what you have, and then you're identifying what are the next things we're going to do within this next year that the community wants, is prioritized. Folks really want to see first and foremost. We're going to aim and go after that. What Mckenzie and I do is provide that type of support. Then we give lessons learned. We talk about different resources we've created that help across scales. Usually in a rural area, we do our hub and spoke model because it's something where you have like kind of a main hub that might have all of the resources, but you might have a community that's living in the mountains that has 150 people that won't be able to get past a certain type of landslide or flood. And so they're one of the spokes, and they have a lot of the criteria, the elements that are needed that are connected to the bigger hub for communications so that folks are in touch with each other. So we try to provide advice. We try to make sure people are funneling back in and providing resources. We host a community of practice. And then we also provide, what are the promising practices we're seeing? What are the things that are really working? The video series, so people get a good idea of what hubs actually look like and feel like. And we continue to try to just make sure there's alignment. We have a lot of conversations like this, where we just help people understand why it's so important to stay grounded in sort of this model, because it's helping across scales, and we're so far bringing along different states, different regional funders, and then hopefully the federal folks will come along at some point.
Nice. Well, how do you see what we're doing over here, like supporting I guess supporting what efforts that you have? Like, how do you see the synergies?
Yeah, I think everything is an opportunity for partnership. We have a lot of information and a lot of stuff that we've been doing over a while, and all of you are living it, right? You're living it in your exact spaces and places. You have your buildings. We're happy, as we, put in the chat, to provide a lot of resources and advice. But then we also ask that as you start going through process, do a check-in, say, this is where we are. These are the things we started doing. So we can learn from your experience and bring it to other folks as well. We're going to be working with rural communities all over North America and then all over the world. And it would be great to say, yeah, we have a group in this corridor that we've been working with for a while. They're doing this amazing work. These are the ways that we've helped them get funding. These are the funding resources they got on their own. This is the stuff they already had in place. Let's tell the story of that and then how they built off of it. So I think it's more of a collaboration. Anything in this space, we're just trying to get more of the hubs in place because they're an actual implementable project. They're not a commitment to some baloney goal that doesn't get actually done.
Yes, 100%. Nice. That's good to hear. So I'm thinking as far as next steps then, I mean, this was good to get the context setting, to get some of those resources that you shared. We can work with this, and then maybe we can set up another call with Mckenzie. I'm just guessing, Baja, you're running around the world making these things happen, and Mckenzie being in Arizona might be the right person to continue the conversation with. What do you guys think?
Mckenzie is the perfect person from our end for you to continue the conversation with, and then she will decide if there's a point at which it makes sense to bring me in at any point. But I would absolutely say with proximity and brilliance to connect with Mckenzie.
Nice, right on. Well, Victoria, what are you thinking, given that you've been doing a stakeholder engagement process there in a very low resource part of the corridor? How do you see what we're talking about relating, if at all? Oh no.
Sorry, I'm on the road,
She-
so I'm battling.
Oh, you are. Oh, geez. Okay.
No, I'm just battling talking space with someone else who's sharing the same room
Got it.
and is in another meeting. But as far as like how that figures into the work that we're doing specifically in Hayden and Winkleman, we've been working with them too, as well as the town of Duncan, and we'll likely be working with another community as well to kind of do a lot of this work. And so much of it is focused on what does the community actually need. More of our work right now is focusing into that like services and programming piece as far as the foundations go, because we want to talk about what is missing in the community, what is not being served in the community, and what do folks actually have a need for. And so having these foundations is actually really helpful for us to kind of categorize things for folks and have them see like a tangible thing that might be missing in their community that they can speak to. A lot of folks see some of these communities as dying communities, unfortunately. And so how can we revitalize some of that and see what folks have pride in and kind of scale that or make sure that that continues. So this is all really helpful, just like context wise. And as we're thinking about how to talk about this with community members and how they can see more of what they need in their community, how we can actually get them to the point where they're applying for funding. We work with the group that, like specifically our team members that Chris was talking about, that checked in on that feasibility study piece. And so they're folks that literally look up grants day in, day out to see what funding opportunities there are for communities. And so knowing what other folks have done in other resilience hubs across the country is helpful as we're helping folks in Arizona identify what's like a good federal grant that they can apply for and how can we deploy some of our grant writers to support them.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm also thinking like the rural development work that y'all are doing, how resilience hubs can potentially fit in as a strategy depending on what makes sense for y'all. So given that we got 3 minutes left, I think it's time to wrap things up here. So we can do a quick checkout if we want. I'll make mine brief and say thank you very much for everyone who came. Baja, especially you saying yes to the call when I just like randomly hit you up on the internet. So thank you for that. And I appreciate the care that y'all are bringing to all this. So thank you. And I'll kick it over to Joanna.
Yeah, good meeting. Thank you for hearing me and letting me be here. And I'll look forward to more. And we're just gonna keep doing what we do here. So I enjoyed meeting you guys. I'll pass it to Kyle.
Yeah, again, thank you for your time, and nice to know who's kind of involved with this and making some connections, and looking forward to further conversations. Victoria.
Yeah, just thank you for all of the information. It's going to be super helpful for our future work and our framing of how we can do some of this work with other communities. I'll pass it on over to Matthew.
Yeah, I appreciate being brought into this call. I actually was not sure what it was going to be about, but it ended up being very helpful. Really good to know Mckenzie and Baja. I'm really glad that you guys are working with Tempe, and I'm sure we'll come back into contact through that context. And yeah, thanks, Chris, for bringing us in.
We're really grateful to meet you all, to be in space with all of you. Thank you for the work you're doing. It's really great. We're glad that you're interested in resilience hubs. We hope that they keep flourishing in the area. And if you do have anything else, we look forward to connecting with you all again soon. But thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you for being here with us.
Great to meet you all.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Bye.